Hello, everyone. Today we'll be discussing operational risk management. The other time in our previous lesson, we talked about the risk quadrant, and we discussed um, hazard risk, and we defined the further hazard risk and pure risk. Today, let's take a deep dive into operational risk. My name is Dr. Dennis Erdogan. Here is an example of how devastating an operational risk can be to organizations. In 2017, a very big company that is known everywhere called Equifax experienced a massive data breach which affected 147 million people. 147 million people were impacted by the data breach at Equifax in 2017. And this breach exposed sensitive personal information, including social security numbers, birthdays, and addresses of people. 147 million people. The financial losses were huge. About $1.4 billion were paid in settlements, fine, and remediation. Market impact, there was a significant drop in the stock value and market capitalization of Equifax as a result of these operational risks that were poorly managed. Root causes, here are some examples or suggestions based on research. Unpatched vulnerability in web application software, inadequate security monitoring and incident response, and delayed identification and notification processes. These were the root causes that led to the humongous nature of the impact of this operational risk on that company. Now, let's define what operational risk means. According to the Barroso Committee definition, the risk of loss resulting from inadequate or failed internal processes, people, and system, or from external event. There are four key categories of operational risk: people risk, process risk, systems risk, and external events. With respect to people, human actions or inactions, including error, fraud, inadequate staffing, or poor conduct, can create people risk within any organization. Process, design, execution, and control of business processes, including flawed procedures or workflow, can also play a part in creating a fertile ground for operational risk. System, technology and infrastructure issues, including IT failures, cybersecurity breaches, or data corruption, are also aspects of operational risk. External events could also trigger operational risk. For instance, risk from outside the organization, including natural disasters, geopolitical instability, or supply chain disruptions. These can impact operational risk. So again, this is just to re-emphasize how those four categories of operational risk can be fed. Human error, mistake due to fatigue, Inexperience or poor training can be an aspect of people risk. Internal fraud, dishonest actions by employees for personal gain, inadequate staffing, insufficient personnel or expertise. As an example, a bank employee accidentally processes a transaction with incorrect details, leading to financial loss for both the customer and the bank. Process risk. Risk from design, execution, and control of business processes. For instance, flawed procedures, ineffective or outdated workflows, inadequate controls, weaknesses in oversight mechanisms or supervision, non-compliance, failure to follow internal policies and procedures. An example could be a manufacturing company's production line has a poorly designed quality control step, resulting in a batch of defective products reaching the market. So, on the other hand, system risk related to technology and infrastructure. Technology is growing. As it grows, there are a lot of vulnerabilities too, if not properly controlled. IT systems can fail. Hardware or software can malfunction. External events, we talked about natural disasters, flooding, earthquake, tsunami, whatever. So these different events could impact organizations in very dramatic ways. So when operational risk occurred, obviously there are impact to companies or businesses. First, financial losses. Direct costs from errors, fraud, penalties, legal fees, and remediation efforts that impact the bottom line, which is the profitability of the organization. Those will be financial losses. Reputational damage. Reputational damage can happen within the twinkle of an eye, but recovery from reputational damage can take a long, long time. Erosion of customer trust, negative public perception, and damage to brand image that takes years to repair. Legal regulatory penalties are there because you could pay fines, sanctions, and legal action from regulatory bodies or affected parties due to non-compliance. Again, there could be decrease in employee morale. A stressful work environment, increased workload, and insecurity following operational incident can greatly impact productivity. Destruction of operations, interruption of critical business functions, leading to delays, reduced output, and unmet customer demands, which could also have another impact too. Loss of competitive advantage. This is a huge impact that could result from operational risk. Competitors gain market share when an organization is perceived as unreliable or inefficient. Therefore, operational risk rarely exists in isolation. A single failure can trigger multiple impacts simultaneously, creating a cascade of challenges that test an organization's resilience and recovery capabilities. Therefore, the best approach is ensuring we identify this risk, provide solution to them, and plan ahead of time. So, like I just said, there has to be a proactive management framework that involves proper identification of risk, adequate assessment of risk, monitoring and reporting of risk, and control and mitigation of risk. This proactive operational risk management is a continuous cycle because As we progress with our activities within the organization, there could be emerging risk. There could also be risk due to changes in the market conditions, changes in weather conditions, changes in government regulations. So, on a continuous basis, we must identify, assess, monitor, control, and mitigate our risk. In risk assessment or risk evaluation, there are quantitative and qualitative methodology that can be used to try to understand the likelihood and impact of the risk. The use of these metrics is very, very popular across the world. It plots the likelihood of risk with the severity, because by definition, risk is a product of likelihood and severity. And as you can see on the left hand side, depending on the likelihood, which can be ascertained based on expert judgment, an event that is rare means it happens once in every 1,000 years or so. Unlikely, maybe one event in every 100 or one event in every 1,000. Possible means 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 or 1 in 100. Likely means 1 in 10, and almost certain is 50%. So based on the judgment of the likelihood, we can plot that against the severity. Let's say on a scale of 1 to 5. And let's assume, say, for a very likely event, let's say the scale is 4. And also the severity, let's say, is also 4. So that gives a risk ranking of 16. 4 by 4 is 16. So it helps you to prioritize your attention on what risk to address first. So in prioritization, you look at the impact versus the severity. And based on your risk ranking, you can take a decision on what risk to be addressed first, depending on the resources at the disposal of the organization. Though this is repeated from the previous lesson, it just shows how risk can be handled. Sometimes you want to tolerate and accept the risk. Sometimes you want to transfer the risk to insurance or contract. Sometimes you want to treat and control your risk. At some point, you may also choose to terminate or avoid the risk altogether. In order to build a proactive risk culture, there are usually 3 lines of defense that must be put in place. First line is operational management owns and manage risk directly. So these involve both the management and the shop floor members ensuring that a risk-aware culture is in place that allow people to proactively identify, assess, and treat risk. The second line is risk management and compliance provide expertise and oversight, because without the support of top management, it's usually difficult to manage risk properly. The third line of support is internal audit, which usually provide independent assurance. Audit must be carried out on a regular basis. Some companies do audit every quarter, some every month, some biannual, some annually. So from this, you can see leadership accountability is very important. The leadership must set the tone from the top. Technological enablement can also be used. Different platforms can be used to, to ensure that data are visible. Training and communication, we can't overemphasize that, because the more trained, the more involved the employee is, the better. The more knowledge they have, the better for them. So, leadership must ensure that risk management is integrated into strategic planning. Predictive analytics from technology must be used, to gather information, analyze information, plot trends, and be completely aware. Cybersecurity awareness and reporting channel must also be created to training and communication. The key takeaways for this class are: 1. Strategic imperative. Proactive operational risk management is not just a regulatory obligation, but a critical strategic imperative that fosters resilience and drives competitive advantage. The second takeaway is the fact that comprehensive risk management framework must be in place. A structured operational risk management framework is essential, which could encompass risk identification, risk assessment, mitigation, continuous monitoring to build an organizational resilience. Risk-aware culture is uppermost. From the top management to the shop floor, everybody must be aware of what risk the organization face. Everybody must be trained to take certain actions that could help prevent negative risk from taking place or minimizing the impact or likelihood. Implementation roadmap that I suggest in this course is: establish leadership commitments. Set the tone from the top and integrate risk consideration into strategic planning. Build a structured framework involving implement a continuous operation risk management cycle with clear roles, responsibilities, and accountability. Develop awareness. Implement comprehensive training and clear reporting channels for all employees from shop floor up to the top management. Leverage technology. Today, technology is everything. Use GRC software and data analytics to enhance risk detection and decision making. Thank you very much. This is the end of this segment of the class or of the lesson. And don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe for more risk smart insight. Thank you very much. I'll see you again in our next lesson.